Homeland Security reports a sharp drop in the number of children and families apprehended while trying to illegally enter through the U.S. southern border in the 2015 fiscal year. Joining me with an update on how the unaccompanied immigrant children from last year's surge are doing now are my guests, immigration attorney Lilia Velasquez and Elizabeth Kennedy, a doctoral researcher on child immigrants. And Elizabeth, remind us of how many child immigrants actually were detained last year at the border.
Last year, around 68,000 unaccompanied children were detained at the border, as were another 68,000 family units.
And you interviewed, I understand, hundreds of child immigrants as you were a Fulbright scholar in El Salvador. What did those children say about why they're fleeing their country?
Yeah, so about 60% said that they were fleeing because of a fear of gangs, insecurity, and violence in their neighborhoods. 145 of the first 322 live in a neighborhood with a gang presence. About half of those live in a contested territory. Another 35% said they were coming because of family reunification. It's an interesting number because over 90% do have relatives here in the U.S. and over 50% have at least one parent. Then 30% are seeking further studies and 27% are looking for work.
So it seems divided, but the major reason you were hearing was because of fear of violence?
It was indeed the major reason, and it's important to know that in El Salvador right now there are 16 homicides a day in a country of just 6.2 million people. So it's definitely a dangerous country with lacking security.
And Lilia, what happened to those children and those families who crossed the border last year? Where are they now?
Well, they're in different places. The majority of them have been released. Churches took custody of them, friends or relatives. They also went in and picked up the child, because obviously the fewer kids that we have in detention, the better. Unfortunately, hundreds of mothers with their young children continue to be detained as of today. And, think of Mother's Day yesterday.
So
they don't take you to brunch, you don't get any flowers. Those mothers are in detention with their children. And I'm thinking,
a year later.
Yeah, that is tragic.
And do many of these children and these families, do they have valid claims for asylum or humanitarian relief?
In terms of asylum, which is a very, very complex law that we have, I interview the clients, and they may not have a very strong asylum claim because of the criteria that needs to be met, the definition of refugee. But we need to file those cases because the fear they experience is genuine. People have been killed in their families, neighbors have been killed. So even though textually it doesn't seem like it's a winnable case, we need to fight those cases as if we were to win those cases. There's also another remedy that not a lot of people know about, is the special immigrant juvenile visa, where you have unaccompanied minors, their parents cannot take care of them, or the parents are not here. We can actually request the court to provide them with legal status in the U.S., and they will get a green card.
Well, speaking of courts, last year President Obama called for more judges and asylum officers to help speed up the legal proceedings. Has that happened?
I don't know to what extent. I mean, they were supposed to hire dozens of new judges, I think more than 25. And to this date, I don't know exactly how many of them have been hired. What I do know is that the court dockets at the moment are completely backlogged. And there's a directive that the Department of Justice tell the judges, clear your ordinary docket to give room to the Central American refugees. And so many of my cases of non-refugees have been postponed over and over. And in some other jurisdictions, the case has been postponed as far back as 5 years from today.
2019.
2019 to hear the cases. So yeah, it definitely has had an impact.
Let's talk about this. The Migration Policy Institute says the U.S. can expect 39,000 unaccompanied minors to cross the U.S.-Mexico border this summer. So Elizabeth, why are these numbers expected to be less this year of unaccompanied minors compared to last year?
This is a really important question, and the reason for that is that Mexico has stepped up its detention and deportation of Central Americans. In 2014, Mexico tripled the number of children that it deported back to Northern Triangle countries, and in the first 2 months of 2015, it more than doubled the number of adults and children that it was deporting back. This is a repeat of history. This is something that the United States funded and trained in the 1980s and 1990s, and it's something we're doing again. The other thing that we've seen in countries of origin is special forces units that are getting on buses and preventing children to board and leave the country. So that is a violation of a basic human right, which is to migrate. That's
but we're seeing the impact at the border. All right. Well, Elizabeth Kennedy and Lilia Velasquez, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.